Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I was just muting my phone. Welcome to the show. So today, this has been coming in more and more over the years. The spiritual path, the speed is picking up, and so of course it affects us more and more, and we kind of have to step up our game, I believe, to keep up. And I think that is a lot of what's happening now. So, over the last 21 years, whenever I have gotten really knocked off center, the only thing that's gotten me back to it is going back to the basics. Right. It's not all the little tools I've learned, all the practices, all the techniques, all the ceremonies, all the different experiences that none of that does it. It's at the end of the day, it's just getting back to basics, which gets me back on that path, gets me back on the beam. So, with everything, with this spiritual shift picking up, one thing that I'm seeing is people are going towards, some people are going towards religion again. Okay, so they're kind of getting off the new agey spiritual path and jumping into religion. And I think, one of the many reasons for that, well, I don't know if there's many reasons, but there are several. But one of the reasons is it really simplifies things and brings you back to basics. And I find this very interesting. So I listen to people that have gone into, I'll just use Christianity as an example, who've really dove into that. And what I'm hearing is one of the things that they really like is the simplification. It's just going like, I'm giving my life over to God or to Jesus, however they phrase it. And that's all I have to do. Like, I'm good. I don't have to dive into every little childhood trauma. I don't have to fix every little thing. I don't have to remember 6,000 tools. I don't have to go to 32,000 sound baths. I don't, like all this stuff. It's just, I just give my life over to this loving energy that takes care of me. And I found all my worries are gone, and that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So I'm seeing the correlation to this, me getting back to basics, people turning to things like Christianity that are simplified. And it depends on how you lean into Christianity too, right? I mean, that's endless. I mean, there's as many ways to be a Christian as there are Christians. So like, it varies dramatically, but I'm talking about the simplified version, of course. That's the title of this podcast, Simplify Your Spiritual Path. And, just to be clear, I'm not saying that you need to turn to an organized religion to do this. At this particular moment, I don't plan to, so I don't think it's necessary. I guess time will tell. But a lot of times we're focusing on trying to live happily and trying to manifest abundance and manifest enjoyable experiences and controlling our thoughts and focusing on the positive and fixing things that are broken. And, it's just so much. It's just so much to do, and it can be overwhelming and endless, right? And it is really. I mean, I've been doing this for 21 years. I'm not perfect. So, well, what am I going to work for another 21 years? I mean, one thing, of course, we have to let go of this idea of perfection in a human sense and open up to the definition of perfection in a divine sense, which we all are at our core. But, so if you compare that list of things that I was just saying, and you compare it with what we've been taught spirituality is all about, right? It's the spiritual terms like allowing, forgetting, remembering. Those are spiritual terms, and they all imply non-efforting. I've talked about this before. It's spiritual terms are non-efforting. So if we're spending all our time efforting, and spiritual terms are non-efforting, there's a disconnect there, right? So this is another thing that kind of drives me into this. I just took a few notes, so I'm looking at them. Yeah, I mean, our natural state is blissful, content, abundant, peaceful, happy. Everything we're seeking is our natural state. It's where we are when everything else falls away. Now, I'm not saying that we never have to work through any childhood traumas or some of these other things that we do aren't beneficial. I'm just saying that as humans, we attach to things. We attach to things very quickly and easily because it's the way we've been conditioned. It's kind of the way this dream of the planet works with things. We pay attention to things. We don't pay attention to non-things, right? So this is, I think, what's feeding our addiction to doing more and seeking more. And, oh, I'm not overly peaceful, so I must have to do more, and I have to do more. And if I do more, then I'll get more. And it's just not the way that spirituality works. So it's not always about doing more, learning more, getting more. It's not about that. It's about forgetting and allowing, dropping into that presence. It's about, the simplification of it, like for me, is just being love. Like, that's it. Just be love. Like, so I don't need to follow some religious guideline of what love is. I don't have to even define what love is. I'm thinking like it's, of course we need some type of understanding of, well, we don't need it. I don't think we actually do need it. I just think that it can be helpful if we have some sort of understandings. May they be vague understandings is probably enough, but we're so addicted to information and doing. This is, I guess my point is really looking at what our spiritual path consists of. And a lot of it consists of taking in information. Of course, well, hopefully trying to implement it, although that's probably the thing we do the worst. Because when we take in information, it feels good. So then we feel like we're doing what we're supposed to do because we're taking in information, and it gives us this little like, yeah, I'm really working on myself. I'm taking in information, which that doesn't do crap. So, but it makes us feel good. So we think we're and then we'll have conversations about it, and that really makes us feel like we're doing something right and we understand something. So then if we understand it, we must know it. So then it must be part of us, which it's not. See, this is the confusion. We have been conditioned to learn in a certain way. I said this to somebody recently. I was like, the longer I'm on this path, the more I dislike school. And it's not just because the obvious of, what I've said. Well, I've said lots of things about school, but learning a bunch of stuff that you're never going to use. But it's, I think what's worse than that is being conditioned. And I understand this is the way the world works. So it's not just school. It's just where most people learn it happens to be in school, because that's how our society is set up. So it's the way we are taught to learn things, right? Because school is about memorization. So if you can take in what somebody says and regurgitate it back to them in a way that sounds like you understand it, whether you do or whether you don't. And then with the good teachers, making sure their students actually understand becomes a little bit more important. So if you can get the point in, so let's just go all the way there, like how teaching probably should be, actually getting your students to understand, not just regurgitate, but also understand. For this argument or conversation, we'll just combine them all into one. Just stick with me. So whether you're memorizing something or whether you're really understanding it and giving it back, that's an intellectual process. And then when you can do that to a certain level, then they go, okay, good person, you can go to the next grade, or you get an A on your test and you get a pat on the back. So we are conditioned to believe, and perhaps rightfully so, with that type of knowledge, that's what we need to do. It's strictly an intellectual exercise, right? With spirituality, it is not solely an intellectual exercise. In fact, self-knowledge does nothing. It really doesn't change anything. If anything, it hurts, because a lot of times knowing about yourself, you think that does something. So then you don't do anything else because you think you learned all about yourself. So now So you graduated. So you get to, you're done. You did what you were supposed to do. You learned about yourself. Doesn't change anything. Every once in a while, some little surfacey thing that you learn about yourself can help, and I mean, I guess maybe even in the beginning of the spiritual path, it can be somewhat helpful depending on where you are and what your problems are. I'm not saying that there are no benefits to it. What I'm saying is that if we're talking about the deep spiritual path, the place that we really want to get to, the depth of peace that we can really lock onto and handle life, that self-knowledge isn't going to get you there. So it actually can become a crutch that keeps you away from it, because if you're not happy, you think you just need to learn something else. You don't. What you need to do is implement that. So, so that's one thing we're addicted to, taking in information and thinking that that's our way. And if we learn enough, then we'll be happy. And it's not, it doesn't work that way. And doing all these just doing all the typical things that we do in the spiritual path, like sometimes they help and sometimes they don't, but like, so, I've kind of talked about everything. I've kind of explained the kind of the problem to some degree. Okay. So I think to give this more clarity, I'm going to dive more into the solution, and then hopefully you can see it compared to what I've said up until this point and see the difference between the two. Right. So what I'm talking about is so I'll go to what I was saying. So if you're trying to live happily, trying to manifest abundance, try to bring enjoyable experiences into your life, try to control your thoughts, focus on the positive, fixing things that are broken, all this stuff. Like if you're doing all that stuff, right, you like you put effort into it. Or you can just be love. Like what if we just were love? Like that's it. Like if we take out all the other spiritual stuff and we just go, okay, I really want I need more abundance in my life. I've been living in lack. How can I do that? Just be love. Well, what does that look like? Well, love, like gratitude is kind of an action form of love, right? Gratitude, everything positive is a version of love. So gratitude is like it's I say it's like the verb of love because it gives you an actionable thing to do. Like you can actually do something to be grateful for, right? Whereas if I go, hey, go be love, people, your brain is going to go, how do I do that? Right? Most people's minds are going to be like, how do I do that? So, but if you say like, be grateful, like people that are on a spiritual path, you probably learned a little bit about gratitude and you realize like, well, I can think about things I'm grateful for and I can allow myself to feel that gratitude. So I can actually do something that brings on the feeling. That's what I mean by a verb. You can do something, you're doing something to bring on the feeling of gratitude. So you can be, and if you feel gratitude, then you're, what are you grateful to or for? Whatever creates abundance, whatever creates everything. Oh, okay. So gratitude is practicing love. Yeah. So if you keep being grateful for what you have, you're going to get more stuff to be grateful for. And then you can live in abundance. Right. So that's one example. Enjoyable experiences. If you want more enjoyable experiences or a lack of negative experiences in your life, I mean, you're not going to get rid of them all, but life goes up and down, so you can't judge something happened that I don't like, so now I'm upset. Like that you can't have that outlook. But instead of doing all the work to change your outlook, just be love. Just be love. So I want more enjoyable experiences. Okay, well, be love. Focus on love. I'm love. So when you go out in public, you speak to people with love. You assume love. You assume they're a good person. Not in a way where you allow people to take advantage of you. I don't want to, if you're doing that, cut it out. That's not love. That's a doormat. Okay. So, but just, interact with other people in love when you go out, and you're going to have more enjoyable circumstances arise. Talk to, like, I'm notorious for having problems with institutions. That's been a big thing for me. Companies, the government, all that stuff. Oh my God. If there's one thing on this planet that has caused me more frustration than anything, it's that. And because of that, I've had a lot of negative experiences. So, but you know what? Every time I center myself before and I say, I'm going to be love, and I get on the phone with customer service about something, or, along those lines, or an email, and I just anchor into the energy of love, and I send it, everything goes so smoothly. It's beautiful. So I'm just being love. Controlling your thoughts. Okay. All right. I'm going to not think of the color red. I'm not going to think anything negative. Like, yeah, good luck with that. Okay. Well, I'm going to replace it. Okay. And that can be a little bit more helpful. But like, what if I'm love? I'm just going to think loving thoughts. Well, this is bothering me. Well, what's a loving way to look at it? Right. Just go back to love. Go back to love. fixing things that are broken. Like, so here's an example of, like, I've said this before. I have never, ever, and I venture to say no one else on the planet has ever, ever in the history of mankind made a mistake when they were fully centered. Ever. And I believe that to be true, because I believe when we are fully centered, we are literally connected to our source. We are connected to divine wisdom. We intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. A line out of from recovery programs. So we intuitively know how to handle all situations. If I'm completely centered, all of a sudden I'll just find myself taking some sort of action. And I don't even really know that I'm necessarily doing it until, like, sometimes halfway through, sometimes when it's over, all of a sudden I'm like, wow, how did I know to do that? I just found myself doing something without thought. And it was always the perfect thing. Sometimes it's action, sometimes it's speaking, happens all the time when I'm working with clients. Because, like, it's, to me, when I'm working with clients, I mean, sure, I can oscillate in and out of ego a little bit here and there, but I'm not perfect. And even when I'm doing these podcasts, but I'm so conditioned for doing it for so many years that, like, I don't have to do anything to get myself into it. It's like I'm conditioned. So, like, when I'm working with a client, I can drop in to that centered space and see the information clearly and pick up on patterns and all this stuff. And it's just natural. It's there's no effort. There's no effort to it. Right. So it's much easier for me when I'm working with a client to stay in that space. Sometimes when I get out in public, it's harder, because then I'm just me and I'm interacting with some ways, and more of my ego can bubble up and get triggered. But my point is that I didn't learn anything to handle these situations correctly. When I'm working with clients, it's not because I necessarily learned how to handle their particular situation before. It's like, so it doesn't have any bearing. It's just that I'm connected to divine information, divine wisdom that's way smarter than me. So as long as I open up and allow that to flow through me, I never make a mistake. As far as I'm concerned, like, people might not like what I have to say, and they might not even agree with it, but it's the information that's flowing through me. I'm not trying to control it. And usually, I can't think of a time like that. Well, no, that's not true. I mean, I can think of, well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. See, it's not about right or wrong in spirituality. See, that's why I was going to say, oh, I've never gave anybody wrong advice. And in a way, that's true. I don't think I really have. But it's not always about right or wrong in spirituality. It's about growth. So for instance, let's say I'm centered and I give my client some sort of information that, for all intents and purposes, is good information. They decide with their free will not to do it or to do something else, and it works out well. Sometimes that means that there was more than one way to get to where they're going, and they found their own way, which is wonderful. Sometimes it's just they had to do it their way to be able to stand up to somebody and think on their own. And sometimes I find out that person's me. Sometimes I can tell when it's happening. When I'm getting pushback and I tune into the pushback, and it's like, oh, let him stand up to you, let him do this, and because they need to learn how to think for themselves. And it's like, yeah, okay, so sometimes I know at the moment, sometimes I find out later. Sometimes they have to go do their own thing, and find out it didn't work. I mean, sometimes we all do that, like I think we judge ourselves and others for that sometimes, and we shouldn't. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're a parent, hopefully you understand this. Like, your kids are going to do things that they shouldn't do, but they're going to do them anyway because they have to learn. Like, we all have to learn our own way sometimes. Sometimes we can listen to others. And I found out later in life that that's a wonderful way to listen to learn. I never did it when I was young. I always learned everything on my own the hard way, always. So like as I got older, after I woke up, actually, 21 years ago, I started like listening and paying attention to other people and learning from their mistakes. I was like, oh my God, this is so easy. So there's multiple ways to learn stuff. And sometimes, but like I wouldn't, no matter how it plays out, I wouldn't say that I'm giving wrong advice when I'm connected, right? It's and sometimes if they do something else and it works, I look at it and I go, oh yeah, that's just a different way to get to do what I was telling them. I was telling them to do this and they did that, but the result is the same. So who cares? And like I said, it's good for people to learn to think for themselves. They shouldn't be completely dependent on me, as a life coach. It's not the goal, So yeah, where, how did I get off on that? Oh, it was being being centered. When you're centered, you never make a mistake. So this is, if we're just that's another way of being love. Being love is being centered, being connected to pure love, just being connected to source. Like, to me, source, divine wisdom, love, it's all the same thing. Divine wisdom is it's the informational aspect of love. But it's just love. It's all it is. It's just love. It's just an informational version of love. That's all divine wisdom is, right? So just this is what I mean. Like, if we, hypothetically here, okay, and this is I'm just going to give you the extreme version of this to maybe help you wrap your brain around it. If you took away all the books that you read, all the podcasts, all the conversations, all the ceremonies, all the plant medicine, you took away absolutely everything you've done on the spiritual path, and you just sat there and were just tuning into love in the present moment, fully centered, feeling bliss as often as you could. That's all you did. That's all you practiced, and you practiced it consistently. I mean, daily, like hourly, if you can, sometimes even more than that, just as much as you can. Just come back to love. Just come back to love. Back, love, 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 love. If you just did that, you'd probably be further ahead on the spiritual path than you are now. Not that the spiritual path is necessarily linear, but you get my point, hopefully. So this is what I mean by simplifying. Don't get, we're just, this isn't, so here's a cautionary statement. The spiritual shift is picking up. This is the type of stuff that we need to really look into. Okay. Like, especially those of us that have been on a spiritual path for a while. Like, we are for all intents and purposes, the leaders. We are, and I don't mean that in a way that we're necessarily leading other people. I just mean that as we're in the forefront of this movement. There are more people that are not on the spiritual path than that are on the spiritual path. Okay. So the ones that are on the spiritual path, we are the ones that are out in front. We are the ones that when people hit these pockets of suffering that they can't take it anymore and all this stuff, they're going to be looking to us for the answers. And not like, how do you fix me answers. What I mean by that is they're going to be looking around for a solution. They're going to be looking around for something that seems better than what they have. They're going to be looking around for something that's different than what they've experienced thus far. Because, I mean, that's what we do. Well, hopefully, once we've suffered enough, that's what we do, right? A lot of time, most of our suffering is because we do the same thing over and over, expecting different results. We've been like it always cracks me up when people like give me resistance and try to use logic about society standards, like, which doesn't happen often with the people that I work with, but like every once in a while in external conversations, people that really aren't interested in this will try to give me logic and be like, well, societal standards are such as, and this is obviously how you do things. And I'm like, look at the world. Look at the world. Yeah, that is a societal standard. And look at the levels of depression we have. Look at the levels of unhappiness, emotional suffering, mental suffering, suicide rates, just societal problems like not feeding the poor and wars all over the world. Like if what we were doing worked, we would be progressing as a society in ways other than technologically. Like that's all we're focused on. We just want to, as long as we're distracting ourselves by building more stuff and exploring deeper into space, or like just as long as we're building taller buildings or something, or there's people are flashing money around, and somebody comes out with a freaking bicycle that can fly, then we're cool. Like we must be advancing as society, and we're not. We're devolving. We're not evolving. Because it's clear now that the way that we live, just external, just addicted to external, it doesn't work. We're not happy. This is not how human beings are supposed to be existing. We are way too busy doing way too much, and it's unhealthy. And we're the unhealthiest we've ever been in the history of the world. And yet we freaking know we have more information, but we're more unhealthy. How is that possible? It's because we're not trying to be healthy. We're trying to make money. Everything is about making money, making things bigger and all this stuff. And is like, at some point you have to understand that that's not the answer. Like ask anybody that's really rich. Well, maybe not anybody. Some people believe their own BS, but most people that have really hit high levels of success have said, like, I think it was Jim Carrey said, I wish everybody could experience success so they can find out that it's not that, because it's not. So what we're doing isn't working. So the masses are starting to look for other people to find out what the hell is working. And they're starting to understand. They're starting to go, you know what, man, I'm tired all the time. I'm unhappy. I'm exhausted. I have a 4-bedroom house that's beautiful, and I'm still miserable. I can't get along with my spouse or my kids. I have beautiful cars in the driveway. All I do is work. I'm pulling my hair out. I'm getting sick. I'm obese. This just is no way to live. So they're looking for things that aren't like that. And we have to be the ones that are the examples. We have to, like I said, it's not by grabbing them and dragging them over. It's just all we have to do is live our lives and speak our truth. That's it. They'll find us. When they're looking, they'll find us. It's not difficult to find a freaking life coach or to listen to a mindfulness podcast. Everybody knows where they are. Just some people aren't ready and some people are. So we need to, this is our evolution is our contribution to the spiritual shift. When people are seeking how to live differently, we need to be examples of that. So these communities that are popping up all over the world, these mindfulness communities and things like that, I love those. I think they're beautiful, whether they're small. Like, I kind of live in one, I mean, technically, I guess I don't, but I kind of do. I live on a piece of land in the mountains, and the people on the land are, the owner has done Reiki. He was a naturopathic doctor in Spain before. My other neighbor is a shaman, originally from the United States, but a shaman. We've got a healing hut with all types of plant medicines done over here. My other neighbor is on the spiritual path as well. And this is just on our piece of property. So yeah, it's kind of like a spiritual little community. We all live our own lives. We help out each other when we need to. But we live our separate lives, but still, it's kind of like living in a spiritual community, but there's more, I almost said traditional. I don't know if that's the right word. There are more, specifically created intentional communities, and larger, where everybody kind of pitches in and all that type of stuff. That stuff is wonderful. You can do it however works for you. There's no one way, but like, those are great. And I've said this a lot of times, man, it doesn't matter. Just find out what works for you. Growing your own herbs on something that hangs on your window is part of a spiritual path. You're reconnecting with nature. You're growing your own natural stuff instead of putting these herbs that they spray with crap all into your body. Just, it can be little things like that. Whatever suits you. You don't have to become a life coach and move to the top of a mountain in the Dominican Republic. Just do your version of it. And if you keep reconnecting to love, you're going to see that. What do I need to do? People are like, oh, what should I do? What should I do? Just be love. That's what you need to do. Okay. I guarantee you, if you spend a bunch of time, just as much as possible, make it a hobby to, whenever you can, connect and feel love flowing through your body, you're going to get used to stillness. Okay. And through the stillness, information comes. That's when you can hear the soft whisper of God. That's where you can download information. Right? I've been doing this for a while. I don't have some sort of magic technique to get information of what I should be doing. I just go with how I feel. Well, what can get me better at that? Being conscious of how I feel. What can get me better at being conscious of how I feel? Being conscious. How do I know when I'm being conscious? Because I'm feeling love. So this is one example of what I'm talking about. Is for me, I've got ADHD brain off the freaking charts. So my meditations, I'm not overly concerned really what my brain is doing. I can't be. I mean, sometimes, I look at it and stuff, but and tell it to shut up and whatever. But for the most part, my meditations are done through feeling. I just center myself, and when I'm connected, I can feel a sense of love or peace or contentment, or whatever word you want to use. I can feel love inside of me. And that's when I know that I'm connected. Whatever else happens, I don't really care. If my mind races a little or goes somewhere, whatever, so be it. I'm connected. How long can I stay connected? Connected to what? Love. Right? Connect to love. So this is what I mean by simplifying stuff. I mean, I'm not saying that you necessarily need to give up what you're doing on your spiritual path. Fine, but maybe add this, just to see if it works for you. Just add trying to act lovingly, think lovingly, speak lovingly, feel love within you. Practice gratitude, because that's a version of love. Just try doing this stuff. Like another way that I've done it, which kind of is the same way that I meditate, is like connect. There's no time in the spiritual realm. So to me, what I found is it's I'm in better space the more often I connect. It's not how long I connect. So I can connect, like, let's say I connect and I meditate for an hour or something, and I have this deep meditation and I download some information, and that type of thing happens very rarely to me. But let's say I do that. I'll go right back out into life, and depending on the state that I'm in, I can completely forget everything that I downloaded and not really do a very good job at implementing it, and find myself very frustrated the same day or the next day, right? But if I'm practicing connecting to source, connecting to love, and I do that, I set a timer on my phone, this Mind Bell app that I use, or I'll put notes around the house, or wear a bracelet, and every time I feel it, it reminds me, or whatever. And I just practice connecting to source, or I just practice, without any reminders, whenever I think about it. And I just center myself and feel source, feel love inside of me for brief periods, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever. If I do that, I don't know, say 5 times a day. If I do that 5 times a day, just for 5 seconds, I am in better space than if I meditate for an hour and get all these downloads. Like, I'm interacting with reality better. I'm more connected to love. My go-to is more loving, because like I'm constantly connecting to that love, slow down, center, love. So I'm functioning out of the energy of love because it's right there. I keep connecting to it consistently. This is one of the things I mean about getting back to basics. That's one of the things that I do. If I get knocked off and I'm like, and I can't get back on, that's one of the things that I do. Connect. Which brings me full circle back to how I started this conversation, which was, see, if you simplify like that, now all of a sudden you can see why people are turning to Christianity, or at least one of the reasons, because it's like all they got to do is remember that they are a child of God and God loves them. That's it. Jesus took away my sins. I'm good. Jesus loves me. God loves me. God's in control. Jesus, take the wheel. I'm not controlling it. You are. It's just, see, that's the beauty of it. It simplifies everything. And we're not overthinking. That's one of our biggest problems, is overthinking and dissecting and making things complicated when they're not. You want to get closer to the truth, you simplify. So that's why this podcast is about simplifying. Just be love. Be love in every way you think about love, talk about love, feel love, practice love through gratitude. Hold your loved one's hand and feel love. Look into your pet's eyes and see love. Pet them and feel the love. Just practice love, practice love, practice love. And you'll feel the presence of love. That's why that's why when I'm connecting to source all the time and connect, which is love, that's why I feel better. I feel safe when I'm consistently feeling love, because I know that there's something loving there. that I'm feeling, that and I feel it regularly, so therefore I'm connected to it, so therefore it's always with me, and it makes me feel safe. And when I feel safe, I don't defend myself so much. Right? Do you see how if you're constantly feeling love, your old this is kind of where I was hoping I was going to get to. Like a lot of what you're trying to achieve, you're going to achieve it through this instead of through all these other channels. If you feel safe because you're constantly connecting to love, then you're not going to get as defensive. And that's a big thing. Most people are very defensive, and it affects conversations. It affects their lives in very negative ways, right? So a lot of people take things personally. Well, if you're feeling love and safe, you're not going to take things personally because you're just in a vibration of love. So somebody can be like, you're a jerk. And you're like, oh, no, you must be hurting. I love you. You know, you might not say that, but that'll be the energetic response. And people are like, oh my God, I would love to get there. What do I need to do? Do I need to go back and I have to make a list of all my childhood traumas and work through them. And then I have to go make amends, and I have to do this, and I have to do that. And then, there's one resentment I haven't let go of yet. And then, I have to do this. And, I'm going to do a sound bath next week, and hopefully that will help. And it's like, gee, it's exhausting. Oh, I forgot. Well, I got defensive one time, so it must be some other resentment that I'm not aware of, or this childhood trauma I thought I worked through, but I didn't work through it good enough. Like, oh God, it's just be love. Just be in the vibration of love. If you're in the vibration of love, you're going to interact with whatever you're interacting with in a loving way. You see? So this is what I mean. Like it's, if you're walking around in love all the time and you just get used to interacting in love, and then somebody brings up this childhood trauma, I guarantee you half the stuff, at least half the stuff, probably 3/4 of the stuff that we've worked through, we probably didn't even need to work through it. We probably didn't need to. We probably just needed to be love. And it would have taken care of it. Maybe, you look at one thing and you're like, oh, this one's still bothering me. I got to do some specific work on it. Okay, cool. That's fine. But if we just keep getting into that vibration of love, vibration of love, vibration of love, I think we'd be surprised how well things work out. So that's the podcast, peeps. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. And I guess I'll do it for tonight. All right. Peace.